Okay, good afternoon all. You're very welcome to the next edition of our Founders Forum Insight series. I'm delighted to be welcoming today to join us Niall Mc Evoy, who is part of the HPSU team in Enterprise Ireland. One of the reasons we asked Niall to come and join us today was we've been getting lots of queries from our Founders Forum participants about what supports are available for HPSU companies in light of the current crisis. So Niall, you're very welcome. You might give us just the 2 seconds on your role in Enterprise Ireland.
Sure. Hi everyone. Hi Emer. So I manage the HPSU Accelerate team for the ICT sector. So any of the companies that are involved in technology software will be part of that portfolio. 15 DAs in the team, and many of the members of the Founders Forum will be part of that group. Been involved in HPSU team for close to 5 years, and before that I was a HPSU myself. So I spent the guts of 7 years doing everything that the guys on the Founders Forum are doing right now. So plenty of scars and a little bit of experience.
Good stuff. So you remember the woes of the last recession pretty well. Tell me, what are you guys seeing, I guess, first off, just to get us started at a high level, what are you guys seeing coming through as the challenges for the HPSU cohort of companies in light of the current crisis?
Yeah, challenges across the board. I mean, look, clearly everybody's faced with a complete reset at the moment in terms of the entire financial structure of the businesses that they had planned for the year ahead. That's changed from the point of view of both revenue and investment. They're two variables, I suppose, when companies look into the future. The two biggest variables are probably revenue and capital raised.
Sure.
And the easiest thing to predict is cost. Unfortunately, cost is a constant in a lot of cases, and it's a constant that can be difficult to change quickly without impacting on the business. But everyone is faced with a very significant challenge right now of having to take a serious, quick, hard look at their cost, their overhead, in order to be in a position where they can trade out the far side with sufficient cash reserves to be able to continue to execute the business plans. So across the board, I mean, we've seen almost every company has been hit on the revenue side, without exception. Maybe a very small number of companies out of the total portfolio, but I can count them on one hand that are actually benefiting from this. But look, 98% of the companies are taking a significant revenue hit. We've also seen investor discussions have fallen off a cliff. So on two fronts, on those that are heading for their first seed round, that were heading for their first seed, so from the pre-seed into the seed stage, who would have been the next generation of Founders Forum participants. We've seen a lot of those funding rounds hit the rocks. A lot of the VCs have retrenched now at this point in time. They're continuing to work on deals that were effectively approved to close, but even some of them are now coming under renewed due diligence. But certainly,
I'm hearing a lot of terms changing.
And
valuations shifting.
Exactly. And look, people will take a view in the market that people will go, well, VCs and other investors taking advantage, trying to renegotiate terms. But I mean, the reality is the world has changed, and the opportunity has changed, and the financial projections that everyone has put together have changed. So if investors are looking to renegotiate terms, I mean, look, companies are going to have to try and robustly defend their valuations where they can. But then there's probably a sensibility and a practicality that's going to come into play in terms of, look, do you want to get your funding round away or not? Because, if you're not able to agree terms, then you're faced with a whole different set of challenges in terms of how do you sustain the business through this very difficult period. So we've seen rounds falling apart completely. We've seen certain rounds under renegotiation, but we're also seeing, and it's important to say that we're seeing lots of rounds and follow-on rounds that were under discussion, where that discussion is still ongoing. You know, it's changing. You know, the nature of the discussion is changing a little bit, but the discussion is ongoing. And one of the messages that we're looking to get out across the board to our clients, to our HPSU clients, be they pre-seed stage or be they at follow-on and seed extension into Series A stages, that we're certainly absolutely open for business. And any rounds that are coming together, albeit they might have a different look about them and a different feel about them than people might have envisaged, but that we're certainly at the table for viable business propositions that have become somewhat vulnerable, shall we say, in the current environment, but that they remain viable, and that the business fundamentals pre this were all pointing in a certain way. We're absolutely very much at the table, and happy to be the first at the table when companies are having discussions with other investors. So, you know, talking to your DA about, look, you know, what might EI's position be under a couple of different scenarios here, to allow the company to be able to have a sensible discussion with the other investors on the cap table.
Okay. So we might go to, I guess, you've painted a picture which resonates with all of us, right? It's the world has turned literally on its head inside 3 or 4 weeks. One of the questions that's coming back from a lot of the participants on Founders Forum, and indeed some of the founder groups last week, is there's a lot of confusion going on in terms of there are supports being put in place by government to help companies, because every company is hit by this, not just the HPSUs. There's supports being put in place, but there's a lot of confusion doing the rounds at the minute as to, do I qualify for those supports? What supports are available? So what we might chat about a little bit, Niall, if it's okay, is the supports specifically for HPSU companies. So from an EI perspective, what are those supports? What can a HPSU expect in terms of support from the ecosystem or the government?
Sure. Okay. So I'm going to deal with I'm going to deal first with the wage subsidy scheme. Let's address the startup piece. Okay. Let's park
everybody else.
Yeah, everyone else. Let's talk about startups. Let's talk about HPSUs, right? Okay. We had a call yesterday in which Revenue were on the call. It was a call with all of the DAs in Enterprise Ireland, right? And we specifically put the questions to Revenue to try and clear up some of the uncertainties around startups. Okay. And what clearly, the first thing I would say coming back was, and Revenue, I think, are very, you know, they're very genuine in what they're saying here is, right? Okay. This is a self-certification scheme. Okay. So people are being asked to interpret the guidelines as listed, okay, as to how that affects their business.
So
can they see,
how does it apply to me?
Yeah, how does it apply to me? Because it doesn't apply, you know, you can't literally say, take 4 bullet points and say, well, you know, they apply to every business. Or pick one which applies to you, and that's it, that's the rule, right? Okay. So Revenue's guidance on this from a startup perspective is, okay, for example, clearly if somebody has suffered an impact of 25% reduction in their revenue, they're going to meet that. You know, that's the easiest one to meet. If your revenue is down 25%, look,
clean cut, it's easy.
Yeah, it's clean cut, right? You can apply for this. It's impacted. Even if the company has reserves, look, some companies have, of course, companies have cash reserves, but in the case of startups that have done a fundraise, those cash reserves are there to fund the business through an extended period of loss making while you're acquiring customers and you're generating revenues and you're building out your technology and your solution, right? Okay. So just because you have reserves doesn't mean that that's free available cash to suddenly say, well, I'll just keep paying everyone what I was paying them before, because at the end of the day, that's just, we know where that leads. Okay. So if a company has seen a reduction in revenue, right, of 25%, that's very clear. Okay. We will have companies, for example, that are pre-revenue or very, very, very early stage revenue. Okay. And we put it to them, we said, look, what about a company who was forecasting revenue growth over the next 6-9 months, maybe going from starting at $5,000 a month and then going 7 and 10 and 12 and 18 and whatever. And that was the trajectory they were looking at. But in the current environment, that's gone. That's gone. So their ability to generate that growth as projected is gone. Their view was, look, that's a 25, you know, that represents an impact, a significant impact of more than 25% on your forecast sales growth. Okay. And that forecast sales growth can be stood over, because all of the clients of Enterprise Ireland, all the clients of HPSU, right, have had a, there's a set of projections in place which were shared with all investors. Okay,
Sure. Yeah.
This isn't made up for the purposes of getting the wage subsidy scheme. They existed, right? Okay, and that has all changed now, and I don't think anyone will have difficulty showing that that was impacted, right? So the revenues point of view was, yes, we don't specifically deal with that in the legislation, but as you're describing here, we would believe that would be in the spirit of the legislation. Okay.
Okay.
The next piece would be around investment. Okay. Now, what they're very clear, lots of companies here will have been in an investment process, okay, where they'll have been looking at follow-on investment or top-up investment from, or maybe even Series A, pick your term, right? Okay. That world has changed as well, right? So where the company would have been relying on investment, significant investment to sustain the business on the pathway that it was on, right? Okay. And that investment has fallen by 25%, or the projected investment. So again, you might have a set of projections to show that, look, I was expecting to raise 750,000 in September, or I had a Series A in, and it's there, it's in my projection.
Or I had a term sheet in 2
or I
weeks
had a
ago
term
that's been
well, I mean,
changed.
come here,
Yeah.
I had a term sheet in, or I had active discussions with investors, including EI, around follow on. That's all now changed, right? Okay. It is a reasonable interpretation of the guidelines as issued by Revenue that represents a 25% impact on investment. Okay.
Okay.
So with all those things taken into account, right? Okay. I think it is probably fair to say that if our clients believe that they can reasonably stand over any of those descriptions that we've just been through there, okay, that they would be in a position to claim under the wage subsidy scheme. Now, I'm going to put a caveat in there straight away, okay, because I have to, but also it's just the reality, okay?
No, sure, yeah.
Ultimately, companies need to take professional advice with regard from their accountant, financial advisor, or whatever, just to clarify that they are happy with how the assumptions and how the legislation is being interpreted in their particular case. There, you have to take advice, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm feeding back in the general, the spirit of the discussion that we were involved in, and I think, look, it is sensible. It is self-declaration. We're talking about companies that are not, I don't think we're going to, we're not talking about widespread wholesale abuse scenario here. We're talking about companies trying to sustain their businesses,
And trying to keep people in jobs.
And trying to keep people in jobs, which is what the spirit of the legislation is about, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So look, I think with that in mind, we're in a very different place from where we were 7 days ago, right? Okay. Yeah. But be satisfied yourself and take the necessary advice that in claiming the scheme, that you're doing it in the spirit of the legislation. I'm sure Revenue will do spot checks and whatever, but look, in the case of most of our companies, I would expect that having taken the right advice, they should be in a position to not worry about it.
Yeah, it's because they're in a funny position, 25% decrease on revenue last year is kind of meaningless for a startup because you're on such a growth trajectory.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So that's really useful. So tell me, what else in terms of EI specific supports around HPSUs through this crisis is it useful to mention now?
Yeah. So look, I mean, so the first thing to say is that we're looking at we've just announced today a financial planning. I'll just get the actual name of it. The Business Financial Planning Grant, okay, has been launched today, and today is the 2nd of April. So we've launched. This is a 5K consultative. It's a 5K. It's 100% 5K grant, okay, which is designed to. It's a maximum of €900 per consulting day, but 5K in total is the max we'll go to. It's to help the financial planning, to help a company to understand the immediate liquidity issues, to create a financial plan, to move forward, to create the framework, the funding framework, to be able to have discussions with investors, with potential supporters, with EI, with lenders, with your bank. But it's effectively to help you to quickly, rapidly write up a revised financial plan that speaks to the sustainability of the business, that the business can then be in a position to recommence its growth trajectory when market conditions so permit. And you know, you talk to your DA to get access to that. We'll introduce it. There's a central application process, but talk to your DA. We have a panel of consultants which are there in place, and look, that panel is going to come under pressure. We all accept that. It's not just HPSU clients, it's all clients this is open to. We do expect that some companies will come to us and they'll say, look, I actually have a financial consultant that I use, really, you know, good firm, well experienced, you know, strong on strategy, on financial strategy, you know, can, you know, how would they be, how could we use them potentially, right? So there will be, we expect and we hope, an opportunity for people that meet a minimum level of qualification criteria and experience, okay, and we'll ask any potential provider to fill out a template just with regards to that. We'll have some specific questions, but if they meet all the questions, there is the possibility at this stage, we understand, of adding people to that list. So that would mean that you could then use someone that you knew yourself.
Okay.
The one thing I would say in that regard, look, if you're somebody doing your payroll, or local, you know, local small auditor, you know, one man,
not the kind of guy. It's
one
not really
man
what we're talking
operation
about.
who's your auditor. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about strategic financial consultants here. So if you're coming to have your own person used, you know, make sure that there's a chance that they're going to meet the criteria. And as I say, we get them to fill out a template. Okay. Just to move on, Emer, just to some of the others, just to some of the other supports. Look, other supports that were previously available are still available, and we are, in the context of the current difficulties the company are facing, or we're looking to extend as many of those supports to as many companies as is practical, right?
Okay.
I'm talking about things like the Market Discovery Fund, like feasibility study supports, like key manager supports, right?
Yeah.
These are all schemes that are running as normal, okay? Talk to your DA. I'm sure everyone has been talking to their DA anyway, but keep talking to your DA about whether or not any of those particular products are relevant to help you to come through this difficult time, right? Now, in those cases, they are generally 50% grant and they're paid retrospectively. Okay?
So I need to be spending to get it back.
Yeah, so you need to be spending. So it's part of an overall solution where you're going to be spending in areas that are relevant to maintaining, sustaining, and growing the business, okay? This is not going to be a cash up front scenario, which is going to particularly help your cash flow. This is part of the strategic solution to making sure you're coming out. So this is about doing the right things for your business, and then your DA looking at, well, in doing those right things for your business, what areas can we support you with grant funding, okay? The next area, which, you know, and again, this is an area that's always open, but again, we're going to try and reflect our activity in the difficulties and the challenges that companies are facing at the moment, and that is HPSU equity funding. Okay, so every company who's on the Founders Forum has already had their first slug of EI money, and many companies only ever get one slug of EI money. Okay, but there's a percentage of companies where we will do and can do follow-on equity funding. Okay, and you know, companies that were making strong progress, getting back to what I said earlier, companies that were already making strong progress and all the fundamentals were pointed in the right direction, that now find themselves in a position whereby they are looking to extend their runway in a significant way, with a significant slug of equity funding and financing. We are open to having a discussion with companies that would meet those criteria. And that would be as an equity funding using our standard equity funding instrument, and that would also, and more particularly, that would be part of a solution that would probably include several members of the cap table. Okay. I mean, I don't just like, you know, there will be an expectation out there that people go, well, look, you know, EI should write a check, and EI should write a check on their own here because everybody else has departed. You know, nobody's got any money. I mean, we got to be practical here as well, in terms of, if all shareholders are going to benefit from the upside of a rescue scenario, you know, we are looking for everyone who is in a position to take part, and we're not looking to put people to the pin of their collar, right? But if there are other investors here who can contribute in a manner to coming up with a solution that collectively puts the company, strengthens the company's funding position, with EI participating in that with some follow-on equity funding, well, then that's a discussion to be having with your DA. And we're happy to also talk to your other investors and your existing investors as part of that, and they can talk to us, and we're all in it together, and we're happy to engage in those discussions. Talk to your DA.
So what you're saying, Niall, is that you're kind of, there's a door open, if you like, to accelerate or bring forward from a time perspective follow-on investments that might not have happened for 12 or 18 months, but may now need to happen that bit earlier. But they're subject to, the same criteria that they would have been.
Yeah,
under
absolutely.
Normal circumstances.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Look, we're going to look for evidence that the company is running out of money, because of what's happened, but that the business fundamentals were all strong before this. If a company was having great difficulty getting traction, had no traction, product, product market fit, all those things were really, really struggling anyway, it is going to be more difficult for us to make those cases. The other area I would say that I've encouraged all the DAs, and we're encouraging everyone who's client facing, is to look at two things. Firstly, any outstanding grant balances that are there to be claimed. You'd be amazed how many companies actually have bits and pieces of grant balances that could be claimed on activities where they didn't put in a final claim because for one reason or another. The other thing is second tranches. A lot of our investments are tranched. Okay.
Yeah. So talk a little bit, because there's a kind of a general conception in the amongst the certainly the participants on Founders Forum that where funding is tranched, it's tranched based on a set of milestones. But obviously, I may now not be in a position to achieve those milestones. So just talk to us a little bit about how that's going to play out.
Yeah, sure. Look, tranching normally happens on the two key pillars of tranching normally are that there's additional money comes in alongside our second slug of money, okay?
Yeah.
Or there, and satisfactory progress against business plan, and there may be specific milestones against that, right? Okay. Again, the world has changed a little bit here, okay? So there will be scenarios where companies who are making progress won't necessarily, for example, have all the money that they thought they had coming in. So we might have been saying, look, we want 500 grand against our second tranche, or 300 grand our second tranche, right? Okay, but they might be coming back and saying, look, I got
half of that.
Yeah, I've got 100, 150. What can we do here, right? Okay. The other thing is milestones. Again, we will try to point to the strong progress up to when this crisis hit as being evidence that that the company was at least on a trajectory to hitting its milestones. Okay.
Yeah.
So it would be important in your discussions with your DA to be able to think, okay, so how can we help the DA to create the scenario for the investment committee here that we were on a journey, we were just a little bit stepped further back
because of the crisis.
Because of the crisis. So I think, where there's a second tranche involved, look, we're open for discussions. Again, look, some people are going to be told no. I mean, look, let's just be,
call a spade a spade.
Yeah. Some people are going to be told, look, there was the progress was so insignificant that we're not going to be able to get the investment committee to hang this on something to be able to say, yeah, absolutely release. This is all COVID-19 related, okay?
Yeah.
But look, let's collectively try and work together, right, to create the narrative to put to our investment committee to be able to participate in second tranches, in follow-on funding, that we're in it together with other shareholders. I think I can't overemphasize that message that we can't be told, look, you're the only guys, and the whole thing's going bang if EI don't play. I mean, everybody who can play should play to some extent, and we will try to reflect flexibility in our approach in playing our part in that.
Okay. So I've one last question for you. The SCBI kind of rumor mill, do HPSUs fall into the eligibility place or not on this? And I did a bit of reading on it myself before this call, and I think I came out of it more confused than I was when I went into it. So just without getting into the detail of it, because you Google it and you'll get pages and pages of stuff, but just give us the high level perspective from your view, specifically when we're talking about HPSUs. Is it for them or not?
Yeah, I can be fairly straight up on this. I think for the most part, and in a general sense, SBCI loan scheme is not going to be for startups, right?
Okay.
So while you may get SBCI to give you a token to proceed to make an application to the banks, the pillar banks will still apply their credit scoring criteria, their regular and standard credit scoring criteria to projects. Okay, so if you are undercapitalized in a poor cash position, not generating massive amount of cash in terms of the ability to repay, to be the ability to be able to repay senior debt, the likelihood is you're going to fail. You're going to fail the tests. So there will be some HPSUs that are in the later stages where they are on a trajectory to generating cash and have the ability to repay. But look, we're talking again, I can count them on one hand, if even one hand. I could probably count them on half a hand.
Okay.
That might. So I wouldn't. We wouldn't be recommending that HPSUs that are loss making would be pursuing this as a means to funding.
Okay, so you might get past the first hurdle, but the second hurdle, which is the banks, is likely to be the downfall. So
we believe so. We believe so.
Okay. So can I just try and summarize, Niall? I think just the key messages out of this. The first one is wage subsidy. Don't be making the assumption that the letter of the 25% reduction in revenue, it's the spirit of the legislation that people need to be looking at. This is the first one, to see do they qualify, and also to get professional advice, to go and talk to their professional, their financial advisors. The second one is the 5K consulting grant to help with the strategic financial planning. I think the key message I heard coming out of this call today is keep talking to your DA. That's really, really, really important.
Oh, 100%. I mean, look, the DA has the keys to the EI cupboard, so to speak. And I mean, talk to your DA, because and the DAs will be fairly upfront as well. I mean, the DAs will be, if they think something's not going to work, they'll be upfront, because nobody wants to be treading this fine wire of we don't have time. We don't have time. You know what I mean? So push the DAs for decisions around what are the instruments that potentially could be used here to support the company to trade out of that. And the DAs will push you to, they'll push you to validate your assumptions, to validate your projections, to validate where you're going with this, and whether to push you to make sure that, that the assumptions which are underpinning all of your current thinking are properly thought through.
Okay. Niall, that's been hugely helpful. So just to say thanks a million for your time. We really appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe.
Cheers. Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Cheers.